Pitch Perfect. How to tell a story investors believe.
Guys, lunchtime. So, please, whoever's here for this session, stand up, please. And let's just take a deep breath, okay? Because this is going to be heavy. So, deep breath. Okay, thank you. Applause to the audience. Thanks very much. Now you're all with us, you're focused, and you're after lunch. So, I can also sit down now. Thank you very much. Okay, so guys, I think, and I'm sure my panelists will agree, this one is kind of challenging but very exciting because we're all pitching, right? We're pitching day-to-day life, we're pitching business, we're pitching to our spouses, to our partners, to our children, so maybe life is all about pitching. So let's start with this panel a bit differently. If each and every one of you can actually, instead of introducing himself, I'm this, I do this, I invest. 1 minute, how would you pitch yourself? So whoever wants to start, just a 1-minute pitch, pitching yourself to the audience, or if that's okay with you guys. Luca.
Can you hear me? Does it work?
Yeah.
Okay. Good to meet everyone. So I'm here to meet interesting people, interesting projects. I'm willing to invest in the best opportunities coming up over these days. So please don't be shy. Come up with the best of yourself and let's try to come up with a partnership.
Thank you, Luca.
Fantastic. So we work with companies to really help compress their sales cycles down. So it's really hard to grab attention now, but also to educate people in a way so that they really understand what your technology does and adopt it. And that's what we help to do in the shortest possible time frame, and we do that with content.
Varun.
For those of you who don't know me, I actually wanted to be a train driver, and I'm here still trying to find my train. But other than that, because I'm not able to do it on every given day, I am here to solve problems, and I'm here to find and meet problem solvers. So be prepared to answer questions because I have a lot of questions.
Thank you, Varun.
And afternoon, everybody. Like all the entrepreneurs and all of the investors in this audience, we are here to solve medical needs. And there's a lot of challenges to be able to accomplish that. Clinical, technical, regulatory, reimbursement risk, but ultimately, in order to make a product and a company really come to life, it needs to commercialize, and that is my area of focus, commercialization. So looking forward to speaking with each of you.
Thank you, Fred. And I'll take the opportunity for myself, 3-in-1, entrepreneur, operator, investor. Now that sounds kind of vague, so I'll talk about that more later. So guys, we're based in Malta, in one of the most amazing places, heart of the Mediterranean. And if we want to connect that to pitching, so to what extent do you guys think that Pitch Perfect or pitching is culture dependent? I mean, any relationship to that? Anybody who wants to just take that?
I can start. Culture, to me, I think I play that in a slightly different way. It's not just the geography or ethnicity and that sort of culture, but it's also the professional culture. So I know, for example, I get pitched to by a lot of founders who are scientists themselves, and they put me to sleep in the first 15 seconds. So you're not doing your self-service if you're starting that way. So it's more than just the culture as in like, hey, which country and what's the pitching culture? More of the, I find that there's a lot of common boring pitches that are done typically by scientists. And I'm not, again, stereotyping here, because they're trying to express the technical strength. And so granted that they start doing that. Now, of course, there are some countries where I've found it to be a lot more of that sort, and in others, not so much. That is how I see the pitch culture vary from professions. And I've seen founders who are a lot more business savvy, and they get right to the point of getting me excited. And I think, given we are VCs here, the ideal match is something where, yes, you're not selling snake oil, but you're trying to say, hey, here's the problem I'm solving, and here's why this is important.
Thank you. Interesting, but maybe we'll talk more about that later.
A quick one, perhaps on my side. Thinking of cultural gaps and differences, I truly believe we must embrace cultural differences as an opportunity to learn and to grow. Meaning that what we are here today, what our mission altogether is not simply about coming up with the next therapy, the next device, the next tweak that simply works. It is all about growing something important in the form and in the structure of a corporation, an organization that aims at becoming something big, something international. So it's an opportunity.
Thank you. Just maybe 1 minute. So most of us are investors, but Claudia, you have a different perspective, right? A different position. So maybe you could.
So I think when we're talking about, can you hear me on my microphone? Yeah. I think when we're talking about pitch perfect and we're talking about marketing principles, it's really about understanding what your audience needs to hear. So when we say, does it vary culturally? I think it really depends on what the important things that need to be heard are. So if you're looking at an investment of a medical device, what are the questions you have? You have, how big is the market? Is this device going to penetrate that market? Does the team have the capability to do that? What's their plan moving forward to exit? These are the common questions that go through. So I think that probably isn't too dependent differently on culture. That's really about understanding your end audience. Is the investor you're speaking to a specialist investor? What type of devices do they invest in? What's their niche area? I think it's very basic when it comes to how do we communicate effectively, and it's really by understanding what the questions are that I need to answer as an inventor so that I can communicate clearly. I think the other thing to talk about is when we talk about pitch perfect, it's about making sure you simply communicate what you're trying to say. And things about not overcomplicating it, so no jargon. Understand everybody doesn't know what you know about your device. So actually, how do we relay it in the simplest possible way? So answer the right questions and relay it extremely simply. And I think that's how you get real pitch perfect, which sort of takes it away from the cultural in the sense you've got to understand the questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Claudia. Fred, please.
Well, and what Claudia just said, I'm going to try and summarize in an acronym. CYA. But this is consider your audience, not the traditional form of CYA. And so when you're thinking about that audience, obviously you're trying to account for all the things that Claudia has just described, which is absolutely right. And in the same breath, you have to make that message authentic and true to you in the way that you pitch, because otherwise it falls flat. It is not a message that resonates. People can't feel the excitement if it's just stats and facts. They can't buy in to the belief, the concept, and that is an incredibly important point of the pitch.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you. So again, this one maybe is a bit of a tricky question, but and again, being most of us investors, I think we can also be critical about investors. And at least for myself, where I also sometimes, I guess, we're all fundraising on ourselves, we also pitch our operation. And I want to dare and ask the question, what, in God's sake, are our investors really looking for? Because, quite frankly, you go out there, you try to pitch, and sometimes, all right, so this is too early, this is too late, this is not focused, this is too focused. So, quite frankly, and each and everyone can talk about her specific operation, but what are you really looking for before investment? So let's start from Luca.
I believe I'm going to start saying something general here. The point that I think is that it doesn't work at all to run the same pitch, the same way to a multitude of investors. You really have to do your homeworks, study who you're going to be pitching to, and let's say, developed sort of a bonding because, in a way, what, from my perspective of an investor, I'm really interested in is not plugging in the figures and making sure that the business case works, okay? So I'm not that sort of investor. Perhaps there are some that are like this, but I'm more looking for a different approach that is the sort of a partnership. I want to grow a business together. And in that respect, figures are a detail, the most important detail, but just a detail. I'm more looking for how to help, okay? And in that respect, it's important that the CEO, whoever is going to make the pitch, knows who is the investor, what the background, the network, the expertise, the intention, the timing, all of those sort of things that come with the investor.
Thank you. So just sort of going back to you, Fred, that's KYC. I mean, know your client, or in this case, know your investor, KYI. And I agree, Luca, because, you know, at the end of the day, and we were talking about this just before the panel with Claudia, to my understanding, each investor has her own agenda, own passion, and own business constraints. I mean, is this fund is just starting investing? Is that the end of the life? Does it have a 7-year perspective or a 17, et cetera, et cetera? So really, KYC, know who you're dealing with, know what her agenda is, hence pitch accordingly. Varun, how about you? What do you think that?
So what are we looking for, essentially, correct? I can give you 2 quick examples with me as a reference point. So me as an investor, I've done angel investing, I've been an LP with other funds, and then me as a VC fund manager, myself. My motivations are different sometimes, right? I've done angel investments where I've wanted the company to succeed, so that idea is what I wanted to really support. So what I'm looking for there is completely different. But with a VC fund, let's maybe, as a contrast, with a VC fund, even though I fundamentally may be that kind of a person as a fund manager, I want very strong, mission-oriented startups to survive and succeed. At the end of the day, as a fund, I also got to de-risk it for my investors, my LPs. People are putting money into my fund so that the fund succeeds, meaning we can then further raise another round and another fund and support even bigger companies or even larger number of companies. And so it is very important for me to look at a balance in the portfolio. So while I may be a neurotech device VC, I will not invest in all 10 companies which are working in the Alzheimer's space. No, well, in some cases it could be Alzheimer's, it could be cardiovascular, which have a neuro play. And that's how I would like founders who are pitching to me to understand this about every VC, right?
Intel, it's all about Intel. I mean, Intel on the investor, right? Thank you. Fred, please, what are you really looking for?
I feel large thoughts that what I'm going to say is a contradiction. We're obviously looking for a return. We're very, very focused on a return for all the reasons that you just enumerated. We have a responsibility to our investors. We have a responsibility to the companies that we work with. And in the same breath, we're going to base those decisions off of a story, off of a narrative, off of an emotional response. And so that hard fact versus that squishy element, those are contradictions, at least in my mind, and we have to hold those in tension. So I'm constantly looking for that tension in a way that works, in a way that makes sense, that it compels people like myself, because ostensibly it's going to compel other individuals, it's going to compel customers, it's going to compel clinicians to want to come along and support this story or to participate in the use of the product or service or whatever it is that we're ultimately investing in. And so I guess what I'm looking for is the right contradiction, not one that pushes people away, but one that draws people in.
So it's a believable story,
Please.
Is what you're saying. It's a really believable and trustworthy story that actually evokes emotion out of people, and it has all the data behind it as well. Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you. Let's pause for a minute or two. Dear audience who have been listening to us, any questions, any thoughts, anybody want to throw a tomato and say, guys, this is BS, there's something else out there? Please, anybody. No questions.
I'll have a question.
Okay.
So, what would you advise to founders in terms of just, going to experts in storytelling, not just thinking about the statistics and how to present them so they're convincing, but also to know how to go beyond the usual introduction where somebody either says, I have this disease, or my son has this disease. Just thinking about beyond general recommendations around storytelling.
Great. Guys, please, anybody wants to address?
So I perhaps can give sort of a feedback referring to the way we are structured and the focus that we have, which is the easiest way for you to either decide to approach us or not, because we are not interested in certain indications and certain industries and segments. So easy, no need to spend time on that. I believe what we are looking for, we've been speaking of coming up with a vision, sort of a journey as a sort of a way to engage the investor. Important, in my opinion, is, and I'm saying this based on experience, typically projects fail based on poor execution. So it's important at start to convince the investor about the fact that there is a plan to fully execute and achieve that long-term goal, right? That's the one thing that triggers my interest the most at the very initial meeting. And then I'm keeping on scratching in order to understand how to cooperate and leverage on that and put the plan in execution all together. But that's the key word that I would trigger since the very first meeting.
Thanks, Luca. Fred, you wanted to comment?
At KCK, we're a later stage equity investor, and growth is our sweet spot. Commercialization is our sweet spot. And so, in telling the message, we want to get a lot of information, a lot of conversation over a pretty protracted period of time. And we want to hear how that story matures and develops and make sure that the say-do ratio that our founders and our teams who are pitching us are evidenced with successes and milestones that are being accomplished. But I think just as important to what is said is who is saying it. And interestingly enough, we've seen a propensity towards a single voice, a single founder-led story. And I think there's a lot of value in making sure that the individual articulating the story isn't always just that founder, because it provides a different sense, a different perspective for how the company functions, how the relationship dynamics are orchestrated, and being selective and thoughtful around who's in the room and who's conveying the message is probably as important as what the message is.
Thanks, Fred. Varun, you wanted to comment?
Sure. I think talking about this storytelling aspect, right? Look, people who read enough self-help books may come up with this, like, grab my attention, grab my collar and tell me a story. And, those work in movies. I think for MedTech, for example, keeping it relevant to this forum, right? It's the storytelling is a lot more of a blend of hard science in this case. But even before we get to the science part, I want to hear why are you talking to me? What is this problem that you want me to understand about? And then, therefore, how are you solving it? But do you do this in a 15-minute spiel? Do you do this in a 1-minute uninterrupted, breathless sentence? No. I think this is what, again, every founder or every person who is pitching, for that matter, actually, heck, if I'm a VC pitching to an investor, I do this myself. First, watch body language as far as you can. Hear cues. Are they coughing? Are they getting restless? If maybe you have spoken for 30 seconds and they're really trying to get a word in of a question. Maybe they already know what you're talking about, and all they need to know is, hey, is this option A or option B you're talking about? And if you answer that, that's great, done. So then why are you going on with your spiel? So please, everyone out here, right? and pitching is not only for investments, pitching is for so many other things, partnerships, support, understand and give room for interaction, especially in a conference setup. If you have formally scheduled a 1-hour meeting, you have all the time. Even then, for every one sentence you speak, see if the other person wants to insert a question. And if not, if it seems like the other person is not even curious, then maybe you're wasting your time. So that's also important to not do as part of your pitching.
So life is a pitch. Life is a continuous pitch. Yeah, great. So now semi-philosophical question, okay? So let's take a deep breath. Everybody's talking about AI. We're the generation of AI. And maybe you, Claudia, I mean, we spoke about this a bit. Is there really pitch perfect in AI, or can we differentiate pitch perfect in AI? What's your take on that, Claudia?
This is me.
Yeah, please.
That's a
You're
really
the
interesting
expert.
question. I think, do you know what? I think if you want to be really pitch perfect and you want to really understand your audience and create that story, which is such a big thing that we're seeing in MedTech at the moment. So it's like, it's the same as in the movies. Why does movies engage you? Because they have a clear story running through. You've got a problem, you've got a hero, you've got what success looks like, you've got what the plan is, which we were talking about over here. So can AI help you do that? I think you've got to do the background research. AI can probably help you do some of that background research, but I think you've also got to understand how to construct the story, and put all the information into it. So if that was where your question was going, I think you still need to put an awful lot of work into yourself. I don't think AI can help you with all of it, but it can probably help you with some of the backgrounds.
So human intelligence behind artificial, or beside artificial intelligence?
Sorry.
I'm asking, so it's human intelligence
Yes.
beside the artificial?
I think so. I think so, because that's where the real storytelling comes from. We're seeing now in marketing that you're getting all AI avatars coming and things like that. That takes trust out of the whole process. So I think yes, I think the human element is hugely important in this, to build trust and build relationships.
Thanks, Claudia. Varun, Luca.
I believe we are stressing this point. Fred said it loud and clear. We are there waiting to see the best human capital showing off, right? And I said it, we are here growing organization. We are here thinking of execution. So the robustness of the team is important. So it's all about that.
Thank you.
So
Varun.
I have a little bit of a professional bias because I'm an engineer, software engineer turned venture capitalist. So I have worked on some of these projects, right? And with computer science, we always say this, garbage in, garbage out, okay? And AI also, we say the same thing, which is hallucination. It's just another word for garbage in, garbage out. I think to Claudia's point, exactly, I think we all should embrace AI, okay? Embrace AI in a way to help do your background research, to help do your pitching practice, right? You get a 3-point bullet plan from ChatGPT, let's say, and it says, do this. Now, you're not going to regurgitate it, but you're going to practice it. You're going to see what is working for you, because as you do it, it doesn't fit your personality to say that second sentence, which is talking about market opportunity. Don't do it. But use this as a prep guide, right? And that is important. And of course, test for hallucination. As soon as you put a prompt, make sure that it's actually giving you the right information. So definitely embrace AI. But here's what AI will not tell you, again, to Claudia's point. It will tell you about my fund, Chaanakya Capital, pre-seed, Neurotech, 2 million, all of that, great. It'll also tell you about my background from my LinkedIn, great. It may not tell you that just the previous day, because of a missed flight, I have a headache, and when I have a headache, I do not listen to anyone for more than 10 seconds. That it cannot tell you, right? And so you, again, have to use AI as your assistant, and preparation goes a long way. Then after that, you also have to prepare this typically, which is, how do I look for cues and what exactly is causing a raised eyebrow? Because as an investor, if you have a raised eyebrow, it is a good sign. It could be skepticism or not, but it is still a good sign.
Good point. Thank you. Fred?
So Varun, I'm going to leverage your previous statement where you were talking about asking a question. And as I was thinking about the conversations that we've each had, the question in my mind was, is it about AI helping to tell the story or AI being part of the story, right? Is it around the necessity of AI being so pervasive that we as MedTech innovators need to have AI incorporated into the story to make it compelling? Or do we end up clouding the message by including AI ad nauseum to the ultimate story we're trying to tell about the product? I'd love to hear people's thought.
Can I add to that?
Please.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I think if AI is an integral part of your product and an integral part of the solution and provides validation to what you're doing, then absolutely it needs to be part of your story. But if AI is in there because it's the hot topic now and you're using a small part of it, it's not the real problem or the real solution, then I think it is going to, confuse. One thing whenever we're doing communication, you need to keep it as simple as physically possible. You need to have one problem and one solution, and adding too much into it just confuses the whole point. It's almost like sending your audience over an assault course, and that's the last thing you want to do. You want it really crystal clear. So I think the question is, how important is AI in what you're delivering?
Thanks, Claudia. I want to take from the last minutes that we have, at least my sort of takeaway from what you guys mentioned and shared. Bottom line, bad news maybe, pitch perfect, there is no one answer. It's complex. However, and I think this is good news, it's all about people. It's addressing the individual you're pitching, you're talking with. It's something which is comprehensive. It's not one issue. It's a comprehensive story, various factors, and again, all about people. Who you're talking, what that person's agenda is, what is his or her desires, business issues, constraints, etc., and addressing, being aware. So that's sort of my takeaway. If any one of you wants to sort of give your sort of final pitch to the pitch, Luca, please.
Well, nothing to add. You said it perfectly. I mean, I wouldn't change a word.
Thank you. Too kind. Claudia.
I think you said it perfectly, but I think although there might not be any pitch perfect, I think there's some really clear guidelines of how, or there's no one pitch perfect, I think there's some really clear guidelines of how you adjust every presentation to be pitch perfect. In the sense, it's really putting that background work in, understanding what the questions are that your investor is going to have, and answering them in a really clear and concise way, so there's the confidence moving forward. So I think you summarized it really well.
Thanks, Claudia. Varun?
Yeah. Have your 1 minute, or I guess 30 second, 1 minute, 5 minute, 1 hour pitches. You have to practice it in different setups, and also be obviously reactive, look out for cues, like I said. And more than anything else, remember this. Fake it till you make it, and all of those things are great, but I think you should stop at where you are faking till you make it to instill a sense of confidence in yourself. Use that to prep, get more data so you feel more confident, but don't fake it till you make it in front of investors, because it's going to show up. It's going to really make itself clear. So don't do that. All the tools that we talked about, by all means, leverage all of those things. Practice so that you can answer the kind of questions, but you're not going out of character, because once you're going out of character, I can really like say, this person is really struggling, and this is not what they're trying to do. So don't get to that point. So don't stretch it, but yeah,
Great. Thank you, Varun, for that. Fred, final words?
Wow, I get the final words. That's very gracious of everyone to give me that. So, Varun, I was thinking about your commentary on, faking it to not faking it, but practicing sufficiently, and I was thinking about, pitch perfect singing. My daughter's a cappella singer, which I really enjoy her singing, and she actually had the opportunity to sing in Carnegie Hall, which was a tremendous honor. It wasn't the first place she sang, right? No person would want to stand up in such a grand place in front of a significant audience and have that be their first opportunity to belt out notes. They had to work their way up, and obviously as investors and as founders and as entrepreneurs, we need to have safe spaces, so to speak, to have those first notes sung. And when we think about that, like the groups that we're in, we can make relationships and have that one-on-one dialogue so that people can start to hear the voice and make sure that we're singing the right part. And I think that's an incredibly important perspective, so that when we get on stage, the stage can be relatively small and we can start with friendly faces who can give us frank feedback and really make sure that our narrative and our story works well. And then, like any performance, performances never go as we expect, ever. And we want to be able to adapt, as I think each of you had articulated. And I think to the degree we can facilitate that success by being open when somebody says, look, I've got this idea, I want to run it by you, I think that's a great opportunity. So I think that's the perspective I would leave everyone with.
Beautiful analogy. I like that very much. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, audience, for bearing with us. Thank you, panelists. And let's move on.